The sky looks like any other afternoon before a storm. Overcast, heavy, the kind of gray that makes you check your phone before heading out. A few drops hit the pavement near your feet. Then you notice something wrong. Not wrong in a visible way. Wrong in a pressure way. The air feels held, like the atmosphere has been gathering something and hasn't let go yet. Because it hasn't. Every water droplet that would normally fall across hours, spread across hundreds of kilometers of sky, is suspended up there right now. All of it. Waiting. Not a drizzle building into a downpour. Not a storm rolling in over time. One release. Simultaneous. Everything at once. So, what if rain fell all at once, instead of in drops? This video will walk through exactly what happens, second by second, to the ground beneath your feet, to the structures around you, to every living thing in the open, and why the answer is far more violent than simply getting very wet. First, we need to understand what we're actually talking about. Rain doesn't feel like much when it arrives one drop at a time, and that's precisely the point. A single moderate storm system moving over a large region carries hundreds of millions of tons of water. That number is hard to picture, so consider this. A standard swimming pool holds about 2,500 tons of water. Now, picture roughly 40,000 of those pools suspended in the atmosphere above a single city. That's a conservative estimate for a mid-sized regional storm. Normally, that water descends over several hours, spread across an enormous area, in droplets roughly 2 to 5 millimeters wide, falling at around 9 meters per second. The physics of that process, the droplet size, the speed, the spread, distribute the energy across time in a way the surface can absorb. This isn't accidental engineering. It's what billions of years of atmospheric behavior produced. But in this scenario, none of that distribution happens. The full mass arrives together. And water arriving as a unified mass at that scale doesn't behave like precipitation anymore. It behaves like a physical strike. The sky darkens not with cloud cover, but with visible, suspended weight. The air pressure drops sharply in the final moment before release. And the sound when it hits is not rain. It is a single concussive thud felt through the soles of your feet and the center of your chest. So what does that actually do to the ground beneath it? In the first second of impact, the surface fails, not floods, fails. Soil that looks solid is mostly air and water already. And when a mass load arrives instantaneously from above, it doesn't soak in. It compresses. The ground behaves less like earth and more like something trying to get out of the way. Soil liquefaction, which normally requires prolonged saturation, combined with seismic stress, can be triggered by sudden mass loading when the pressure exceeds what the structure between particles can hold. The ground doesn't sink slowly. It displaces sideways. Pavement is no better. Roads and concrete surfaces are engineered to shed water laterally over time, not to resist hydraulic pressure arriving vertically all at once. The loading force cracks the surface, not from below, as in a flood, but from above, as in a strike. Low-lying areas shed the load downhill within seconds, compounding the impact at every elevation drop. The sound across a city in this moment is not a splash. It is the flat, repetitive crack of structural materials giving way in sequence, one after another, spreading outward from every point where water meets ground at the same instant. And that's just the ground. The surface is already failing before the water has anywhere to go. Here's the problem that makes everything worse. Drainage infrastructure, every river channel, storm drain, and absorption layer built into the landscape is designed around flow rates measured in hours, not fractions of a second. A river system that handles a severe regional flood over a full day receives the equivalent total volume in under 1 second. That river does not carry the water away. It becomes a pressure vessel with no release valve. Water seeking any downhill gradient at that volume doesn't flow. It surges, moving with lateral force even across nearly flat terrain, because the surrounding volume leaves it nowhere else to go. Valleys fill not over hours, but over minutes. Basins that normally act as natural buffers become collection points that overflow before the initial impact wave has even finished spreading. And here is the counterintuitive part. River channels and drainage systems actively concentrate the damage. They don't distribute it, they focus it. Every channel that normally moves water efficiently now accelerates a surge toward its lowest point, with nothing slowing it down. Streets become indistinguishable from river channels within seconds. The water turns brown-gray almost immediately as displaced soil enters suspension. This stops being a flooding problem. It becomes a terrain problem. So where does that leave anything alive? The answer depends almost entirely on where you are when it happens, and not in the way you'd expect. Being indoors offers less protection than it should, because the structural failure described in the first seconds of impact means that buildings are already compromised before the water rises high enough to enter through doors or windows. Hydraulic loading from above damages walls and foundations through force, not inundation. In open terrain, the impact pressure itself, not the depth of the water after, is the immediate physical danger. Hydraulic shock, the pressure wave that travels outward from mass water impact, is sufficient to cause blunt physical trauma at close range. There is no warning interval. The event is effectively instantaneous relative to any evasion response from any living thing in the open. Below the surface, soil ecosystems, the microbial networks, root structures, and burrowing organisms that make agriculture and forest growth possible, are disrupted by sudden compaction and mass displacement in ways that take years to restabilize. Forests absorb normal rainfall through canopy layers that slow and redistribute the water gradually. Simultaneous delivery overwhelms every canopy instantly, delivering the full mass load to root systems and soil in a single event. Fields that look struck rather than rained upon. Vegetation flattened in radiating patterns. Forests with exposed root systems and standing water between trees that were never designed to hold it. But the immediate damage isn't actually the longest lasting consequence. In the days, weeks, and years that follow, the planet carries the event differently than any storm it has processed before. Mass soil displacement at this scale triggers secondary erosion and landslide patterns that persist for months along every elevated gradient. Groundwater tables, which normally shift gradually in response to surface saturation over time, are disrupted by instantaneous surface loading in ways that take years to restabilize. Sediment displaced into waterways alters downstream ecosystems for years, reducing light penetration, smothering riverbeds, shifting the conditions that aquatic life depends on. And then there is the sky. All the atmospheric moisture that normally cycles through days of cloud formation is gone at once. The atmosphere above the affected region is, almost immediately after impact, unusually clear. Strangely, sharply clear. The light comes through at an angle that feels wrong after what just happened below it. Below that clarity, the land rearranged. Not destroyed the way fire destroys, with obvious char and ash. Displaced, as if everything was briefly liquid, and then set again in slightly the wrong position, which is when you realize what rain actually is. Rain is not weather. It is a delivery system refined over an immense span of time to move water from the atmosphere to the surface in the gentlest way physics allows. The droplet size is not random. The terminal velocity is not incidental. The distribution across hours and kilometers is not a coincidence of fluid dynamics. All of it exists to make the arrival survivable for a surface that cannot handle any other version of it. This scenario doesn't just answer what would happen if rain fell all at once. It answers, quietly, why it never does. You're going to feel slightly strange the next time you hear rain on a window and find yourself, against your will, grateful for it. That's a normal response to learning something true. If you want to see more, click the video on screen now.